Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Freedom of speech, the ability to express yourself. It's a cherished idea, as well it should be. Most of us who live in liberal Western democracies think of it as a basic human right. People have fought and died for it. But now we may be in danger of losing it. The threat is not coming from without, from external enemies, but from within. A generation is being raised not to believe in freedom of speech, but rather that they should have freedom from speech they dislike. This is a threat to both pluralism and democracy itself. We see this in Europe, where sensitivity-based censorship attempts to ban anything deemed hateful or even just hurtful, and to ban criticism of religion, especially Islam. But the United States, despite its strong constitutional protections in the Bill of Rights, is far from immune from the rising trend of suppression of speech, or what is sometimes called political correctness. This is especially true at America's colleges and universities, the place where our future leaders are educated and where you'd expect speech to be the most free. Highly restrictive speech codes are now the norm on campus, not the exception. According to a study by my organization, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, 54% of public universities and 59% of private universities impose politically correct speech codes on their students. And thanks to recent Department of Education guidelines, 100% of colleges may adopt speech codes in the coming years. How bad is it? At a public campus in California on Constitution Day in 2013, a student who also happens to be a decorated military veteran was told he could not hand out copies of the Constitution to his fellow students. The objection from the university was not ideological. It was out-of-control bureaucracy imposing limits on speech. That same day, another college student in that same state was told he could not protest NSA surveillance outside of a tiny free speech zone, an area that comprised only 1.37% of the campus. Months later, college students in Hawaii were told both they could not hand out the Constitution to their fellow students, and that they could not protest NSA policies outside the school's free speech zone. FIRE took these colleges to court, but the fact that we had to shows you how bad it has become. Recently, students and sympathetic faculty have joined forces to exclude campus speakers whose opinions they dislike. At FIRE, we call this disinvitation season, although the season lasts all year round. Since 2009, there has been a major uptick in the push by students and faculty to get speakers they dislike disinvited. These speakers have included former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, the Somali-born feminist and critic of Islam Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and the director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. And that's only the obvious part of the disinvitation problem. Few conservative speakers are invited to speak at colleges lest they have to be disinvited later. The newest threat to speech comes from so-called trigger warnings. Alerts that warn students that they are about to read or hear something that triggers a negative emotional response. A 2014 New York Times article cited the example of a Rutgers student requesting trigger warnings for the classic American novel The Great Gatsby because it, quote, possesses a variety of scenes that reference abusive, misogynistic violence, unquote. Recently, Oberlin College attempted to institute a policy that heavily encouraged the faculty to avoid difficult topics and to employ trigger warnings as a means of making classrooms safer. Safety has been watered down to essentially mean the right to always feel comfortable. New demands for trigger warnings are popping up on campuses across the country. Add in popular academic theories that encourage students to scrutinize speech for microaggressions, any statement that might be construed as racially insensitive, classist, sexist, or otherwise un-PC, and it's clear that campuses are teaching students to police what they say. This is precisely the opposite of what is needed. Our society needs candor, and it needs freedom of speech, not freedom from speech. Intellectual comfort is not a right, nor should it ever be. Not if we want freedom of speech. Let's just call it freedom to survive. I'm Greg Lukianoff, president of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education for Prager University.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel, click here. To help keep our videos free, donate here.
Hey guys, I'm Arthur.
Hi, I'm Gavin.
Did I get that order wrong?
It's fine.
Dora, you're supposed to go before me. I think that was in the chat. All right, sorry. Hi, I'm Neil. I think your audio is definitely not working.
Hey Jordan, how's it going?
Good. Did we start yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody.
So the topic today is on free speech or freedom of speech, First Amendment. Lots of stuff to talk about. Does anyone want to go first?
Why is my camera not? Oh, okay. So I guess I'll go. No one's gonna start. So, so free speech. I think that's one of the most, personally, I think that's one of the most important things in the world. The freedom to express your opinion, the freedom to free speech. And yeah, overall, I'm a big fan of free speech. And I think, yeah, maybe we should all start by talking about what our opinion is of free speech. Then we can move on to more complex topics.
I think that free speech is by far the most important right you can have in a free-thinking society, or at least a democratic society. And anything that infringes on free speech, it's pretty like such a terrible thing to do. And in any way.
Yeah, I think free speech is really important.
Does anybody else want to say something on free speech?
I can't really hear it.
So do we want to move on to maybe talking about, because I know what I want to talk about was, so like what are some, like why is free speech so important? So I guess for me it'd be just because the reason it's so important for a free thinking society. And Arthur, we can't, if you're trying to, oh my God, if we're trying to talk, we can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you. I can see you moving your mouth. I don't know why people, try unplugging the headphones. I can't hear you. I don't know why. So Yeah, so I guess we should. I don't know why so many technical difficulties are happening right now, but yeah, I guess it's been a rough start, but whatever. So I guess maybe we should talk about, or the people that can talk, unfortunately, about why, again, like I said, why is free speech important? And for me, I think free speech is very important. Just to what I like to call, it's definitely one of the things. There are many things, but one of the things is to escape an echo chamber of where basically you're talking with people that share your ideas, and only the people that share your ideas are talking, and no one else is talking to you. But free speech allows you to break the echo chamber and to have new ideas, even if you don't like them, even if you think they're disgusting. You can see new ideas, and I think living in an echo chamber is one of the I think it's the best way to stunt your intellectual growth as a person. I think those are overall a horrible thing, just to live in an echo chamber about just an echo chamber about anything, because then you really have you aren't exposed to new opinions and new ideas, and that's how advances are made in humanity. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it makes the collective dumber overall, and it basically
It
lets
was an echo
society.
chamber.
It doesn't let society grow. What?
I was just specifying that free speech doesn't make our society dumber. It's the echo chamber.
Yes, it's not having free speech.
And not having free speech makes society
And,
dumber as
it's like if you're not going to listen, it's fine if you don't want to listen to anything else, but you have the option to listen to other people's opinions. Because even if you think it's the worst idea of all time, it's still an alternative idea to what you have. And maybe you're wrong, even if you think you're the most right person.
Yeah, I know I've been wrong about quite a few things that I thought I'm right about, and it's only because of free speech I'm able to change my mind.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah. Man, this is
Sorry. So we are obviously in America. We have freedom of speech, which is great, but in places, especially like North Korea, North Korea is crazy, but you don't necessarily have freedom of speech there, and it's not.
Well, not necessarily you don't.
Yeah, you really don't. You talking smack about Kim Jong-un.
The glorious leader.
Yeah, the glorious leader who's missed a couple of gym days.
He never misses any arrow shot. He always gets a bullseye.
Oh yeah, he can fly a plane and talk while he does it. Anyway, you don't have freedom of speech there, and so you aren't free to talk your mind, and so you kind of have to keep what you believe, shoved down into your mind, and you can't talk about it without fear of being like executed and stuff, and that's not fun.
Yeah, or I mean, in some cases, they work people to the point of it's worse than death in concentration camps.
Yeah, especially I'm actually writing a paper on this. I'm going to go little off topic. Countries that kind of do support Christian persecution. If Christianity is your belief, you're not really allowed to bring it up there because you could be persecuted, and that's really not fun at all. It's terrible.
Yeah, I think that I think that anybody should be able to talk about anything. For example, I think that any one of you should be able to start the church of worshiping a purple pony, and you should all.
Do you know about the flying spaghetti monster, Neil?
Of course,
what's that called? Oh, Pastafarian.
Mm-hmm.
I am a pastatarian. I worship the flying spaghetti monster. He is so awesome.
Did you know that you can take your driver's license picture with a strainer on your head because you call it religious headwear?
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
I'm a pastatarian. I worship the flying spaghetti monster.
We're getting a little off topic here.
Yeah, well, all right, let's talk about I know we were talking about the Ben Shapiro protests.
We weren't talking about that. I think that was suggested.
Yeah, that was suggested. And Milo Yiannopoulos. And I'm a big fan of Ben Shapiro. I don't know too much about Milo. But
I know quite a bit about Milo, and I wouldn't say that I'm a fan, but I know quite a bit about Milo. Or at least I listen to him talk. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, though. And I wouldn't say I'm opposed to him, and I wouldn't say I'm a fan.
Well, I love Ben Shapiro, and I know Neil likes Ben Shapiro a good bit. And I think he brings up some really, really interesting points that no one else seems to be making. Or, like, I guess a more sensible right-winger. And
I don't think, and we're not right-wing, just to be clear. We listen to both sides.
yeah.
That's
a little identitarian once you get to that, but it's a little dumb.
Yeah.
But he's really interesting, and it's so dumb because everyone did not want him to speak, or not everyone, but a lot of people on the left did not want him to speak for some reason, and that made no sense to me because, like, Ben Shapiro did not care. He enjoyed that there were protesters outside of his building, like
Because it was supporting free speech.
And for some reason, everyone else thinks that it's hate speech, and that hate speech should be illegal, which is outrageous.
And I think that what we should do also is, like, define maybe like a line between the point where, like, can free speech go too far, and if it can, where is it? And if it does go too far, morally speaking, should it go too far in the eyes of the law?
Well, who gets to make that line?
Exactly. That's another thing I think.
Yes, that's the problem. That's way too subjective. Like what someone considers too far is way different than what someone else considers too far. Like free speech needs to be like 100%, or else it won't work because that is way too subjective. And you're basing off of something like morals. And when somebody goes into making that decision about like, oh, what is too far? They're bringing in their own, experiences, their own oppression, and everyone will say something different. So bottom line, like you should not be, persecuted for saying something.
Yeah, that's generally what I think. I was just wondering if anybody thinks that there needs to be a line. I personally think that. So I also wanted to find a quick thing. There's the difference between. I think I did this on the one about protests, but just really quick then. The difference between terrorism and free speech. And terrorism is where you say. Is where you threaten imminent violence, or you support violence, not support violence, or if you say that, like, okay, everybody go kill blank, that is not free speech because that is terrorism. If you say, I don't like this person at all, I think they're horrible, I think they're dumb, I think they're stupid, you can say all the nastiest things in the world, but that's free speech. I think that's what's beautiful about it. The only way to fight with free speech is with free speech. And I think that's awesome. And you cannot use violence to fight someone with free speech. Or I guess you can, but you're a piece of shit. But I just think that, and that's one of the things that was going on at the protest. It's like, I think that they have as much right to be there. They had as much right to be there as Ben Shapiro. It doesn't matter if I disagree with either of them. I disagree with both of them. If I think one side is just a piece of crap, I definitely, I'm glad they were there protesting and exercising the right to free speech. I definitely don't agree with the protesters because they should not be exercising their right to free speech to suppress somebody else's. But they should be there and they should be doing that if they want to because of free speech.
That's what's so great about it.
Yeah, free speech is just awesome. It's the best thing.
It's the greatest. It's the best.
It's what makes America great.
Is my sound on? Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I came in late, so I'm Martin, by the way. And so free speech, I think, is something that is very important, and I'm glad that it's a thing in the country that I currently live. That's always great. And where free speech can also just be attacking someone, and then you mask it as, it's free speech, I'm sharing my opinion. Like, I feel like there's kind of a line there where if you're telling someone that you have the right to do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you should say, I have the right to do this, therefore there's nothing wrong with me.
You're kind of cutting in and out. Like,
I think that, yeah, you are cutting in and out, but that's still drawing a line somewhere. Like, somebody can think something is offensive.
saying this person is random things. Like getting offended by something. I mean, like personal attacking on someone, like basically bullying, and then just saying.
You can continue. I just didn't know if you were done because the audio.
Yeah, sorry.
It just seems like you could still. There's still, if you're gonna do that, there's still lines to be drawn.
Yeah, well, I don't ever think that you should ever suppress something with a law. So I would never want to like, but I mean, just personally, like, don't like think before you say something. Then just don't say something hurtful and then say it's free speech, so I'm allowed to say it. Because you're allowed to say it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a right to hurt someone just because you can.
Well, yeah, and the other thing about that is like with free speech, they won't for just saying something offensive. Thing about free speech is it means they won't receive consequences from the government, but that doesn't mean other people can't use their free speech and their power to
social consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else who, like, if the large majority disagrees with this person, they have every right to, use their free speech against them and, put them down in that way.
One of the great things about free speech is it really makes the majority of people get to live in a comfortable world. Because then what the majority of people think, what the majority of people do, what the majority of people say, and what the majority of people like and don't like, it actually, so they can create their own social cues. So then the majority will actually be more comfortable instead of, and I think that for free speech, I think that there's a clear moral line for speech. However, there is no, and this is basically saying exactly what you were saying, Martin. I'm just trying to define it. So basically free speech has I think it has, there's a clear moral line in the sand. Well, not clear because morals are always argued about and debated upon. But I think personally there's a moral line in the sand saying you cannot do this morally speaking. And there is objective morality to a certain extent. Or I could say morality is subjective. I'm going to kill you. Which obviously I think we could all find morally abhorrent, me killing someone. But so me putting a line in the sand and that if you say this, that's immoral. Like if I walk up to you and I'm just being a complete asshole to you, and I could even and it falls under bullying if I'm just bullying the crap out of you, maybe not violently. I mean, it's free speech and they shouldn't be punished with a law. But I think definitely these people who do that, I would encourage them to, be ostracized, not ostracized, but I would encourage people to use their free speech to either not socialize with them or to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and we want to socialize with you when you do these things, when you do these things that aren't mean to people and hurtful purposely for no reason.
I think that's pretty great. I mean, oh my goodness, can you still not hear me?
It's just really soft, that's all.
It's incredibly quiet.
I turned my volume all the way up and you guys murdered my ears.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happened to me. I turned the volume all the way up when she was talking and haven't spoken. That just hurt my ear.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. It's it's the glitch, whatever's happening fault.
Yeah, there should be a little on your the cord on your headphones. There should be a little piece of plastic. The microphone should be somewhere on there. If talking into that might help. We can't hear you. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So, no, it's not working. Okay, so, yeah, you guys can go.
Well, I think it's I think the thing about bullying is sometimes you don't know, sometimes people don't understand what is bullying and what is somebody just trying to make a joke of other people, even though it doesn't justify it. I think someone, like, even at our school, there's definitely things that could be counted as bullying, but are definitely just jokes.
Like touching a rubber band, Dylan. You shouldn't have done that.
And
Yeah.
even making brash gestures.
Bullying is such an interesting conversation because the verbal abuse and the mental damage of it that you feel from bullying is extremely genuine, and it's not fun at all. But it could just. But on the other hand, if you're trying to defend free speech, I mean, it can just be, you can disregard it as like, well, they're exercising their free speech. Like it's, I don't think a line can be drawn, but that's one of those areas where it feels like one should, and that's where it gets really complicated.
I think that lines just inherently cannot be drawn for everybody. That's why I think everybody should draw their own lines, and then we find people who have the same beliefs as you with their lines. They draw the same. However, I'm not supporting an echo chamber, as I talked earlier. Still talk to people that have different beliefs than you do to support your intellectual growth as a human being. Because definitely echo chambers are the worst possible thing. Well, not the worst possible thing. Dying is worse than that, just a little bit. But it's one of the worst things you can do if you want to increase your knowledge as a person, to live in an echo chamber. So that's why I think that as long as you are able to keep your job, because you kind of need money. But as long as you're able to keep your job and, not be too boisterous there to the point of you don't lose your job, you can just, I think, draw your own lines in the sand and then find people, share what you think and share your sense of humor. And also, comedians, they say, they're crossing the line a lot with some of their jokes. And that's the thing. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like an ass, but I mean, don't go to their shows. Don't watch their stuff. I mean, yeah, you could say this is so offensive, we should boycott them. You can say that. And if you really think it was that offensive, you can do that. But the best thing, unless you think it's horrible, is, I think, just to, not go there. People who try to share that stuff with you say, I'm not interested, sorry.
Yeah, there are certainly some comedians that might take it too far. Like there's been, like when you talk about political correctness, there is some truth in that like someone shouldn't, like there are jokes that take it too far, whether it's referring to like homosexuality or race or whatever. But ultimately, if like people can do with that what they do with everything else, where you exercise your own free speech, and if this person says stuff or makes jokes that are offensive and aren't liked by the general public, then you would think that they would just lose popularity, and then that's the consequence they will receive, and that might happen. That's just what you have to hope happens. Maybe they shouldn't be censored, but you just have to, not support them.
Or maybe someone who says those offensive things, and because the thing is, you have to understand, there is a again, this is just generalizing, this very, very clear generalizing, but I think there's a point where political correctness becomes so commonplace, that when somebody comes up and says things that are politically incorrect traditionally, they're seen as strong leaders who won't take shit from anybody, and people, and I'm not saying, and I'm just saying, that's part of the reason Donald Trump won the presidential United States.
One second, Neil. I think it's interesting. Like part of the reason that Donald Trump won is there is one thing I kind of agree with him on, is him not being completely politically correct, but at the same time, he doesn't understand what the line is between just being like an ass and not being politically correct. He doesn't know where that line is. Like, it's not like all. I don't think political correctness is such a great thing, but it's also not a great thing just being a jerk to everyone and just saying really crazy, mean things.
On the topic of Trump, and I'm not, before I go and say this, I just want to let everybody know who is listening and everybody in here, I am not saying in America we do not have free speech. We do. And I'm not complaining about what I'm about to bring up. I am just bringing it to attention. But I was just thinking about the fact that isn't it like illegal to threaten the president-elect?
I think it is. I think I remember seeing this somewhere. I think you can't say, I'm going to kill the president. Oh, okay, wait, okay, wait, I just actually said something that I think. Okay, the point is, don't think, oh no.
O'Neill, the FBI are coming.
Oh God.
They're always watching.
I don't think so. I think it's considered treason. I'm not sure. I think I might just be pulling this, out of, I might offend somebody, so I won't say
Essentially, you can arrest anyone in America for anything. It's just up to the police's digression.
It really is actually. To a extent, it's just to a very large extent it is.
You can arrest people for spitting in public, for like chewing gum in some places. It's illegal to surf in like Iowa, where it's a landlocked state.
Isn't it illegal to flirt in Florida after 7 p.m. or something?
It's possible. Essentially, you can just arrest anyone for anything at all times.
There's so many crazy laws on the books, and sorry, one second. And people are so intimidated by cops that they'll just sign a plea bargain because of the threat of losing a case. Because you have to pay money for a case, and a lot of times it's not worth it. You'll just pay a fine for some BS law that's been on the books. In Canada, there's a law against grazing, like chewing grass. What the hell?
Well, speaking of Canada and free speech, it's kind of insane because
Bill C-16.
Yeah, I'll get into that. I don't know if I brought that up before. That blows my mind. Canada seems like it has almost no free speech. Like, they do have free speech, but there's just so many laws that go against free speech in every way. Like, I don't know if you guys know who Jordan Peterson is. He's really cool. He's really against this Bill C-16, and Bill C-16 is basically where if you cannot misgender someone. You can be fined if you misgender someone, but like if you don't pay the fine, eventually it leads to you being arrested. So that's a dumb argument. Whenever it's like, it's just a fine that can lead you to get arrested. But
when you say misgender, do you mean like accidentally call somebody who looks like a girl a boy?
On accident, on purpose. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But yeah, sure. And also, there's no legal process to change your gender. And you basically you can just come out and say whenever you want to change genders, which I'm not against. I'm not against people who want to change their gender. But if you're just gonna say that like out of nowhere one day you just want to change your gender and now it's illegal for you guys to call me by the wrong gender or by the wrong pronouns or whatever, it seems a little outrageous to me. Like there's no paperwork you have to sign. There's nothing. You literally, someone could come up to you like I say I'm a boy. Like I say you can call me he, him, or whatever. It's like I could just come out of nowhere and say, I would like to be called they, them now. And you have to call me they, them, and I'm going to call the police and you're going to get fined. Out of nowhere. I could just do that. Or you could, essentially it just takes away your right of free speech. And this one professor, Jordan Peterson, he against calling people by the pronouns they want to be called. Or no, that's not true. But he doesn't want to have to call anyone by any pronouns in his classroom. Not saying that he wouldn't. It's exactly against free speech.
The point is that he just doesn't want to be forced by the law.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be forced by the law to comply. And I would personally use any gender pronoun somebody wanted me to use just out of I like to talk to people and I would just talk to them. But I shouldn't be forced by the law to do that. I don't know. Did someone want to say something earlier when I was talking and then I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't remember who that was.
I'm going to need to look up more details on this bill because I feel like I don't know enough details on it where the way you're describing it, it sounds like it could be easily misconstrued what on the surface looks like a law that outlaws the, calling somebody of it, like misgendering somebody. It could also, I haven't looked into it, but it could also be something where it's just, they're drawing a line for hate speech, where it's not just if you misgender them, but it's if you get angry with them or you attack them or you forcefully misgender them in a violent way, and then you can be charged with a fine for something like that. It's just a way to stop hate speech. But if it's literally, and I doubt this, if it's literally just you misgender them, you go to jail or you get fined, that's not okay. But that sounds extreme.
I mean,
That's not obviously what it completely is. I think the point is that, I'm sorry, what was the thing right before you said they were saying something about, dang it, that was what I was trying to respond to. What was, before you ended what you said, what was this thing you said directly before that? Do you know what you were saying?
No.
Okay, just come back to me.
Hate speech? I don't know.
Well, I think that, yeah, I know what it was. So you're talking about this violently, like forcing, I think if anything is done violently, it falls under violence.
Yeah.
I think that also that, I don't know if the law should have any place in hate speech other than discriminating someone against, for example, getting a job because I think you're weird, therefore no job for you. I think that's in all, and obviously I don't think being weird, if you're like disruptive to the workplace, then obviously, but I just think that, and also the point of the law is that, I think might be in New York too, to an extent, is that you don't want, the intention of the law is to make sure that you don't just misgender somebody, like if you're employed or you have a landlord. I think this might be in New York to some extent. You shouldn't be able to misgender people on purpose. But the intention of the law is far from what's written on the books. And what's written on the books is that you just cannot misgender people. And this can be so subjective. And I'm not sure what the actual, what's written down. I'm going to look that up when I'm done talking.
I just looked it up, actually.
Oh, awesome. Go ahead, please.
I'm reading it now as I talk, and basically it comes from nursing homes where elderly transgender people were misgendered by their caretakers after, and then refused to call them by their preferred pronouns. So the law, you get fined if you refuse, not if you accidentally, but if you're told someone's pronouns and then you refuse to do it, you get fined.
See, and that's what I mean. Like, if you refuse to do it and you're doing it with that aggression, with this intention, no, I don't like you and I'm disrespecting you as a person. I don't care what you tell me about who you are. I'm going to, discriminate against you. It's that intention that is being fined.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. I think that, there's a difference between discrimination and disrespecting. Discrimination is something where, oh, you want to buy this bag of chips? Oh, you are transgender, you do not get to buy this bag of chips. But if you were not transgender, you would be able to buy the bag of chips. That's discrimination. However, disrespecting somebody by just saying, I don't think I'm going to call you this gender pronoun, I don't think that's hate speech. And
I don't think it's necessarily a great thing to do to someone, or you shouldn't do it at all, but I do not think that it should be illegal in any way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's actually quite ridiculous that, in my opinion, that this is illegal. I mean, you don't have a law against calling somebody a dumbass. I mean, why should we have a law against this? And yes, people could take more offense to this. They could take they probably will take a lot more offense to this. But, it's not the law's job to keep you from getting offended.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, though. It's this is not anything good, but it has never been illegal to say the N-word or anything. And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a good thing to do.
Don't say the N-word.
No one has ever tried to fight. No one has ever said you shouldn't be able to say the N-word. Or I think I think the N-word would be much worse than misgendering someone. I'm not sure. But it'd be pretty bad.
Well, intentionally misgendering somebody, according to what Martin said, but still, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to defend this law when you're thinking about, like, the prime example. Like, someone is like, I just want to be referred to by they pronouns, and someone's like, no, fuck you. It's easy to defend it. But in the situation where someone might come out and is like, I'm a star gender, and I want you to call me Zerk, and someone else is like, no, that's ridiculous, then they're arrested because they're disagreeing with that. But under the confines of the law, like, that is illegal. And that's that's where it's ridiculous. And that's a potentially real situation. So in that sense, I agree with it. I disagree with the law, but I agree with what you're saying.
I'm a unicorn gender, and I'd like my pronouns to be Spotjigaloop and Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I identify as John Bonham.
I identify as an attack helicopter. And my pronouns are cactopus and machine gun.
I identify as a coconut, and you may only call me by Mr. Coconutty.
So I think
law firm.
by that.
You know, I was listening to this one historian. His name is Thaddeus Russell.
Oh, I think I heard of him.
Yeah, that's the one that our friend Brian told us to listen to. And I think he's interesting in some respects, but he thinks that, I mean, in some ways, gender is just a social construct. But in a lot of other ways, it's like not everything is a social construct, because some people try to make the argument that everything is a social construct, and that race is a social construct and age is a social construct. And even some people have been making the argument that if you can be transsexual, can't you be trans age? Like I could be a 50-year-old woman. Like.
Okay,
And I don't.
I have to ask, what is transsexual?
Or transgender.
Yeah,
Transsexual is the
I'm
wrong.
wrong. What is transsexual?
Also, I think that
That's something that's so.
yeah, I think that gender itself is a social construct. However, I think sex is clearly not a social construct. Sex is biology. There are boys and girls in sex because, I mean, you know, different bits and parts, different chromosomes. And that's, you know, so, but however, gender itself, we decided that, hey, let's categorize these things. The things with this are called girls, things with this are called boys, boom, boom, social construct. However, I don't think that just because it's a social construct doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, like a lot of people inherently say. For example, not murdering people is a social construct. We decided not to murder people as a social construct. I brought up murdering a lot, but
Yeah, that's kind of your go-to, Neil.
Yeah, every example you make has something to do with killing people.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
I mean,
saying I don't do that
I'm not saying I've
sometimes,
killed
but-
people, but
Neil has said on record that he would like to kill his sister. But not ironically, like for real.
Oh my gosh. Neil.
Now you have two reasons why the FBI is going to show up to your house.
She's pretty insane now. I agree.
yeah. But so, I mean, so I think that I lost my train of thought. I probably had nothing else to say. I thought I had something else to say. All right.
I have things to say. Am I still going in and out?
No.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Gavin, can I get some meow mix for you real quick?
Oh. Oh shoot. I can't be blocked now.
That's great. I have 7 cats. Cats are good.
Oh my gosh. 7 cats?
Yeah. Anyways, so
No,
about
don't sit.
social constructs in general, I feel like social constructs aren't necessarily bad, but the fact that when you're born you're like supposed to be interested in certain things if you're a certain gender or a certain age, and how that, like, at least like 15 years ago, that was how it was. That's bad. Nowadays, I feel like it's not really that way anymore, and you don't necessarily have to do the thing that is associated with your gender and age. I feel like a lot more 30-year-olds are collecting action figures and stuff. Like time itself is a man-made thing, like what we define as time and age and weeks and days and stuff.
Man-made? I'm sorry. It's cactopus made. I'm sorry. That was... Wow.
It's great.
That Battlestar
But yeah, so I feel like just because things are social constructs doesn't make them bad, because like if we didn't have days of the week and like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7 o'clock, like things would be very hard to keep track of. Like things would be frustrating, and you wouldn't be able to keep schedules. And like some social constructs are very good, and like you said, not murdering people, that's good. Not killing people is typically good. That's a good social construct. But that does not necessarily mean that every single thing society has set for someone to do needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think like it's kind of funny how some people make the argument that everything is a social construct. And I was actually listening to a podcast last night, and it was Joe Rogan, and he was interviewing this guy named Sargon of Akkad, I think that was his name.
Oh God.
It was really
know who that
good.
is.
Yeah, oh God.
What?
Yeah, he's done...
Is this going to be like one of those stories that you hear like the other day? I heard this news article, saw this news article about how a guy dressed up in a Jesus costume beat up a guy in a Jedi Knight costume. Like he broke his ankle and the police are...
But it was interesting because they were talking about social constructs and how there are certain things that are social constructs, but on the other hand, it's like a man pees through a penis is not a social construct. That's just a fact. There are certain things about genders that are just facts. Or
Excuse
sexes.
me.
They're
Men do not pee through those. They pee through funnel cakes.
Sure. But I just thought, and also, he made a video today, that guy, Sargon of Akkad, and it was really interesting, and it was, there's been this whole campaign throughout, I think, England and Canada and America, where they've been posting these posters that are like, it's okay to be white. And it's kind of interesting because on one hand, you'd think it's really racist. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong about saying it. Because it does seem like, not a lot, but a fair amount of people who are on the left think that being white is bad, and that you have white privilege or white male privilege. Just freaking kill me. But like that white is being bad, and it was an interesting thing to say because it's not racist in any sense. It's not saying that white people are better. I just thought it was something really interesting.
Yeah, I find things like that really interesting because people get so angry at that kind of thing, and like, what are you angry about? Like, nothing that's saying goes against you at all unless it specifically says, like, white people are okay and anyone that isn't white is not okay. But, like, that's not what it's saying. It's saying white people, like, it's okay to be white. That's true. And I've seen so many people get so angry, like, and talk about privilege, and like, I think nowadays the term privilege gets thrown around a lot based off of like very ridiculous things. Like, you can't say because someone is white automatically they have privilege, because that doesn't make sense. Like, every single person is different, and I know a lot of people who do not like have anything of all different like genders and races, and like I know a lot of people who have a lot of things. Like, I feel like it's very different to people.
I think that like, I mean, if I saw a sign like that, I think the first thing I would do is go, yeah, okay, obviously, what's the point of this? But like, I just be like, I guess so. Like, yeah, of course they're okay. White people are okay. But, and it's like, again, yeah, it's like, I think people see that as like inherently racist, that people, especially people that are like, I would say, people that, I don't know really the word to use, but I think people that think that they're like oppressed by all white people, I think that they would definitely find that as like extremely offensive. And like there are people, like I know that there are people who actually think like, oh, white people are like oppressing everybody. And it's like, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure the average guy, works, works, goes home, plays some video games, goes to sleep, wakes up, repeat, isn't really causing oppression or anything on anybody. But yeah, so I think that even if it does, like, I think we should also, I think what's really interesting is like, is posting a picture that says, white people are good, everyone else is bad. I mean, obviously that's racist. I think we can all agree that's morally wrong. But how do you think like free speech would work with that? Do you guys think free speech would support that? Like, I'm interested to see what you guys think.
Free speech wise, yeah, sure, it's fine. But I don't feel like this topic is really a conversation about free speech. It's about I could totally take this to a racism conversation, like everything that you guys have said in the past 2 minutes. Oh my God. Jesus. But no, free speech, yeah, it's fine. They have the right to say it. Doesn't mean it's okay.
Maybe we should have something in Youth on Subjects of the World where we can talk about that. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, we should.
Well, Dylan, you know like quite a little bit about like, what we were talking about, right, with the stuff that you look at. Dylan, were you paying attention, Dylan?
Yeah, I just didn't understand what you mean.
Like what we were talking about, and then Gavin saying he wanted to like respond to those, and I was saying maybe we could even have a Youth on Subjects of the World where we talked about that. And I was saying, no, go ahead.
I just think one of the great things about Youth Subjects of the World is that you can take things like a little bit off topic and have really good discussions. I mean, I don't know. That's what I think is cool about it.
All right. Well, there is white privilege. White people do have privilege. A poor, lower class white person is in a better position than a poor black person.
I had something to say before. I thought you did, about what we were talking about right now before we got into this. Like, I'm sorry, but I just thought, for some reason, I thought that you did. I thought you were trying to.
Me?
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought you were trying to say something about this topic.
No.
Okay. Sorry, then yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, it's just that. There is white privilege. And the thing about that statement, like, white people are okay, if you, like, when black people have a black pride, they're an oppressed group of people, and they are, like, very recently, over the past few decades, they have, gotten empowered, and they are proud of their culture. When a white person says, I'm proud to be white, that's not about culture. That is solely about their skin tone. And they are saying that in direct opposition to black people who have been oppressed for many years and finally have the ability to be empowered and be proud of their skin color and their culture that has been like oppressed for many decades and longer. If you are white and you as a white person, like when a white person wants a white pride and they want to be able to say white is okay, that's them saying like, wait a minute, now all these people are happy. Like, what about me? That's what it's like. You as a white person have privilege.
I don't think it means like that. I think talking about race is almost a little irrelevant because you end up just having this long argument that just goes in circles and then nothing ends up being fixed. like people. I mean, you could go out and say that white people are great. It doesn't say that white people are better than other people. But this is not my belief, so I'm just saying you could, because that's essentially what you're doing at Black Lives Matter and like almost a new type of civil rights movement. And it's actually really interesting because Martin Luther King, he really despised African culture. He didn't like jazz. He didn't like rock and roll. He didn't like dancing. He didn't like boisterous preachers. He was very right wing. He didn't like any of African culture. He really
like
kind of
jazz?
despised it. What?
Stop.
You like jazz?
No.
Jazz? Sure, I like jazz.
No, that's. Well, you. Never mind. Just continue, Dylan.
But it was actually really interesting. He was smart enough to realize that all the cultures that have ever come out of like there is a class called the African American class, because it's a lower class, and the like you have the Italians and Jewish people and Irish people were all part of that, like in the early 20th century. There's actually there's a book that was written and taught about in colleges called Why Jews Are Negroes, and it's pretty crazy, but it was actually taught in schools and stuff. And
Dylan, I don't think. See, I know what Dylan's talking about exactly, because we talked about a classist system in school earlier, and I don't know why, but Dylan, I just like I don't think you're like trying. I don't know if you're like doing the right thing to like get the point across. Because if I was coming from a foreign like perspective, I wouldn't understand like what you're saying. He's saying that it's a classist thing, and that's part of the reason why some of these things are in place, because of a system of classes. I mean, that's what you're basically saying, right? Yeah, and the reason he's talking about the Irish and African Americans is because back in the olden days, it was seen as the African Americans, they're not just a race of people. They're not just people with a different color of skin. It's a class, and this class is lower than this class. And Irish people, they were seen as in the same class as African Americans. But they changed their mannerisms, and they changed their manners. And I'm not saying this is a good thing, but what happened was they changed their mannerisms. They changed this, and they were seen as part of the white class. This is all, as I think, a horrible thing. Culture shouldn't be dictated by anything. I just thought that, Dylan, you weren't like, I saw what you're trying to do, but I just didn't see that. I just didn't think that anyone was like understanding what you were saying coming from a foreign point of view. That's why I like interjected.
Mm.
But I think so. I guess I'll just say really quick what I think, because that wasn't. I was just trying to clarify that. But so I just think that I think that there are a lot of. So Gavin, if I'm just to be clear, if I'm correct, you were saying that there is that the reason that white privilege and stuff exists is because statistically speaking, and let's be honest here, you can't argue statistics. Statistically speaking, African American people have lower income, higher rates of imprisonment, and getting captured for crimes than white people. Therefore, there is white privilege. Is that what you're saying? Just to be clear, not to put words in your mouth.
You can look at statistics, sure, but like a lot of those statistics exist because of the oppression that Black people have been under. Sure, all right, yeah, but it is way deeper than that. It is not as black and white as you're suggesting, but sure.
Okay, then I guess if
I don't mean to like discount this, because this is a great conversation, but I want to bring up two things. One, we're talking about free speech, getting a little off topic, and two, I feel like we might need a little bit more diversity in the kind of cast, I guess you would say, for this topic. But it looks like we've hit the time for our break. We will be back very shortly.
I think I'm not gonna be able to come back after the break.
Huh?
I don't think I'll be able to come back after the break.
Well, we'll all be here, or should be here, except for Dylan. So, bye, Dylan.
All right.
Namaste.
Occidental College in California is considering instituting a system for students to report so-called microaggressions perpetrated against them on campus. Microaggressions are statements that intentionally or unintentionally send a negative message related to someone's membership in a marginalized group. We visited campus to ask Occidental students if they agree that the following statements could be considered microaggressions. They've all been documented as such on a college campus somewhere in the United States.
Have you heard of the term microaggression?
Yeah, that's a big thing on campus. If we see large-scale violence, we can name that as a macroaggression, but the way that we devalue that violence, the way that we silence that violence, that's a microaggression.
I'm asking an Asian American, where were you born?
Yes.
Very, very contextual, you know?
That's not a microaggression, that's just asking where they were born.
Telling a black student that he or she is very articulate.
That is, yeah. Yes.
What about saying all lives matter?
I think because the history behind Black Lives Matter, it's kind of like appropriating a statement that was created specifically to talk about Black lives being lost to police brutality, so that is.
I'm colorblind, I don't see race.
Possibly?
I believe the most qualified person should get the job.
Qualifications aren't really the only thing you should consider when hiring someone.
If you're saying that the most qualified person is someone who is not a minority, you're not of a religion you believe in, then yes, that'd be a microaggression.
Saying God bless you after somebody sneezes.
Oh, that would be a microaggression because of different religions. Yeah, it could be a microaggression to someone who doesn't believe in God.
I think that the harm there is relatively minimal.
So there's still some harm though.
I would say there's not harm, but if it's being asked, clearly someone found.
Maybe mini microaggression.
Perhaps.
Do you see any downside to creating a database full of statements that faculty and students make to each other in terms of protecting free speech values on campus?
Not in terms of protecting free speech value, but the idea of a database certainly raises eyebrows.
So yes, we do need a system where we can report our experiences, and that like a system of education or whatever.
I would say it's good to have it in place, but to have like harsh actions against it, it wouldn't be beneficial to student life here.
It'll make a safer environment. So I fully support the council, and I think it's really great that the faculty is taking this initiative because it wasn't one of the demands. The faculty on their own said, like, we're going to do this because we believe it's what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm. They went above and beyond to police hate speech.
I think so in some respects.
Protests are erupting on college campuses across the country as students demand that administrators address racial grievances through mandatory sensitivity training courses, hiring of more diverse faculty members, and the resignation of insufficiently responsive college presidents.
Change comes from listening, learning, caring.
Video captured at Yale University show a student shouting down a professor trying to engage her in conversation about the role of faculty in regulating students' Halloween costumes.
It is not about creating an intellectual space! It is not!
This professor's wife, also a faculty member, later resigned from Yale, saying, "The current climate at Yale is not, in my view, conducive to civil dialogue and open inquiry." Another clip out of the University of Missouri shows students and at least one professor pushing journalists out of their self-styled safe space.
You're pushing me! You need to get out! You need to get out!
No, I don't.
While these protesters are clearly exercising their First Amendment rights, images such as these have led more and more observers to wonder whether or not college students care about the free speech rights of others.
What are your thoughts on the concept of free speech? Do you support free speech?
Yes, I do support free speech. And Oxy is an environment that also supports differing opinions.
Free speech allows you to have new input constantly, and I think that's like a really big part of the community here at Oxy.
Obama has actually encouraged this, saying that instead of college students being coddled, they should have these active discussions so that they can learn something new and change their viewpoints a little bit.
Too much censorship would give a lot of power to few individuals, and I believe in a more even distribution of power.
I think that everyone should be able to say what they believe and what's on their mind.
Most of the students we spoke with seemed to defend free speech in principle, if not always in practice. But one organizer of the previous week's protests viewed even the concept of free speech with deep suspicion.
Those using the rhetoric of free speech are individuals who already are in positions of power, who are creating history, who are creating these dominant narratives. Free speech conceptually is about this idea of equality, that everyone can have the right to say something, but that's not the way our society works. That's not the way this college campuses work. We only hear the same reiteration of particular voices over and over again, and that's white students' voices. That's President Veatch's voice.
A recent Pew poll found that 95% of Americans believe citizens should have the right to criticize government policies publicly. But the numbers weaken when you start talking about offensive speech. 40% of millennials polled believe that the government should be able to prevent people from making statements that are offensive to minority groups, for instance.
If it's a racist remark or something that tries to stir up the public, I think that should be stopped.
I think if the speech involves a threat or involves violence of any type, then that should not be allowed. But other than that, I don't think there should be a regulation on that.
Personally, I think that if you ever say someone, I hate you because you're so-and-so, that should not be allowed. In a way, it's free speech, but in a way, again, it's a hate crime. If you're saying you're a lesser person because you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, any of the above, that's not okay, and that's a hate crime.
That's the other thing about free speech. When I say that it's about power and privilege, it only enables things like hate speech, because it makes it seem that everything that we say has equal weight, when that's not true.
Don't want to single out Donald Trump, but his approach to this political campaign, saying we should monitor mosques, we should build this wall and keep out all the Mexicans because they bring their gangs, they bring all their crime, that kind of speech is really hurtful to those people for no reason, just because he wants to get his views across. And
So Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to say those things?
Personally, I wouldn't say so, just because like a lot of other people, I don't really think that he has the capabilities of being a president.
What kind of repercussions would you like to see for hate speech violations?
No, I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. I think that in no way should we send someone to prison for that, but I think that there should be protection of people who are being attacked.
What we say in terms of hate speech has incredible weight, right? Because it's intimately linked to violence against people of color. It's intimately linked to the prison industrial complex.
Do you think free speech is valued on this campus?
Yeah, I think it is.
You feel that free speech is alive and well on the campus of Occident?
Yes. The only thing that I do know now is that we're in a position where you can't ignore what's going on this campus. And that's kind of the bottom line. So students have been turning a blind eye for a while now. Whether or not they're using a justification of free speech, that's on them.
If I were to sneeze and you said, "God bless you" to me, could that be a microaggression?
I want to say no, but at the same time, I guess it would count.
Welcome back to Youth on Subjects of the World. We're back, and we're here to talk about freedom of speech, and I have a snake that is intertwined into my headphones, and I am stuck with it.
Is that a snake? Oh my gosh. I thought you just had a really weird haircut.
So we got pretty off topic near the end there, so we're going to wrap it back around to free speech.
I think that we want to maybe do another Youth on Subjects of the World about this, because I think we could easily fill 2 hours talking about this.
Oh, we could fill forever.
Oh, we could fill with topics like that. You could fill the rest of time. Because a lot of times people are just not going to agree, no matter what logic is in front of them, and a lot of times people just think one thing, and that's a matter of opinion. You can go around, and a lot of times there's just so much to talk about that you can just talk for hours, and I think that would be more like the last one there.
Right, so let's get back on topic then and save this for another time when we have more time, because I don't think we can do this topic justice in a quick 15-minute discussion. I think we should do it justice in a 2-hour-long discussion where we have the people that are passionate about this want to talk about it. I think that really will do it justice because it's a very interesting topic. So let's get back on topic with the people. And also Dylan is gone now. So we'll be continuing without him. So yeah. Who wants to open up?
So free speech is good. I mean, talking is something humans usually like to do. That's always nice when you can say your opinion on something without being arrested. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so earlier we kind of mentioned Milo Yiannopoulos and Ben Shapiro, and I don't know much about Ben Shapiro, but a while back I did, see a lot of stuff about Milo Yiannopoulos, and there are a lot of protests around him that involve him not being allowed to go to a college to say what he has to say, and then the people who support him saying, well, you're infringing on his free speech and this is like not good. That's the argument and then there's the people who don't like him who are like, no, they have every right to not let somebody like him, use their platform. So like, I don't know. What do you guys think of that? I think that is a good discussion on free speech.
I think that's a great discussion. I think that this is a part where normally I think, other than the race discussion, which will have, its own episode, hopefully, I think we've agreed basically like, oh yeah, this is good, this is bad, okay. But this, I think I can see both sides of the argument with this. Because it's like, on one side, the people, they should have, you want the freedom for them to speak and to talk, and other people, you let these people have freedom to talk. Why not let these people have freedom to talk? But on the other hand, you have the people who are people who just say, like you just said, Gavin, we don't want to let you use our platform because we think your message is horrible. And I see that too. In a way, it's their freedom to say, we don't want to support you we don't want to support you to spread what you're saying. We don't want to do that. And I definitely see both sides of the argument here. It's very easy to see both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I lean more on the side that the platform has the right to, refuse the person to use their platform. If the college has a viewpoint and this person opposes that viewpoint, or they just simply don't like what this person has to say, or, a lot of people don't like what they have to say because it's just really, it's not a good message, or they believe it's inciting violence, or whatever the reason. They have that right, and that's part of their free speech. But, there is argument against that. This wouldn't be a conversation if there wasn't. But that's where I fall, personally.
I think I actually had a really great conversation with someone recently talking about not this exact situation, but basically these kind of things happening, usually with college campuses, of just like basically and I don't necessarily agree with this, but the person's side of the argument was they opened up like what they were saying was basically like right now college campuses free speech is almost like not a thing if you don't agree with what the majority is. And that's like a part of the majority's free speech to say they don't want to hear it, like, but it's still negating other people. And we had this big conversation which went into this, and it kind of stemmed back to a lot of the people in college right now are millennials, right? I don't think any of the people on this count as millennials. Yeah, I don't know what we're called yet. We have a different generation name.
It's really
it's Gen Z.
Yeah, we're Gen Z. I think
at
least most of us are.
Cool. Okay.
It depends on who you ask. I think from the millennial thing, there's like different opinions on what years it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So, anyways, that a lot of times people who are in college of that age do not like to hear anything that isn't in their echo chamber. Like if you don't necessarily agree with what they have to say, a lot of times they don't want to hear it at all. And that's how there's a lot of like adults saying, oh, you millennials think everything should be handed to you and no one should ever disagree with you and you always need a safe space. But the topic that the person I was talking to brought up was basically like, that's their fault. Like that generation was overprotected, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that they don't want to hear like what other people have to say because they were raised thinking they didn't have to hear what other people have to say, like participation trophies and all that stuff. Like, not necessarily saying that's bad, but to say that people get mad at them for not wanting to hear other people's opinions is like, that's not their fault. They had to be raised by something. Their formative years were raised by you. So like, they're not getting that from nowhere. It has to be something that there has to be something that caused that in society to make people of that generation and like that like kind of like millennials who are have liberal views not necessarily wanting to always hear other sides of the story. I feel like that's interesting to me because it falls right under the free speech thing. Like with this particular situation, I don't know if I agree with either sides because I think both people are like, I guess I kind of feel like if it's their, if the thing, they don't have to come there if like most of the people don't agree with what they say and they're not for what he has to say, so they don't want him to come in and like, that makes sense because like that's their choice. But at the same time, I feel like what about the audience that does agree with them? Like, why are you depriving them because of like it's hard to say a defining thing, but I just think it's really interesting how everyone gets mad at like millennials for not wanting to hear other opinions and needing safe spaces, like when you were the people who raised them and like they got that from somewhere.
I think that if I had to pick a side, I suppose it'd be rather close, but I would probably maybe end up picking the side where you should let them go speak, mainly because of one reason. And that one reason is it's a college, and colleges are places for learning, and as I stated earlier, that the worst way to learn is to be in an echo chamber. And even if what Milo says there is just not even wrong, but just downright stupid and dumb, then I think it's actually still beneficial to have him there in a way so that people can say, if I want to counter this argument, here's what some people are going to be saying, here's what I can say, and if you don't like it, then you don't obviously have to attend him speaking. I think that the problem with that is, like, if someone is so adamantly against someone else's opinion, even if they're wrong, or they could learn from that other person's opinion, one of the things in human nature is when you're told something you believe is wrong, or you're going to believe that stronger. So I think that actually wouldn't necessarily be helpful if you're strongly against what someone has to say and then they come in and tell you it. Like, that's not going to help anyone because you're just going to continue to believe what you believe, especially if you're surrounded by a lot of people who agree with you. Like, that's not going to help your case. It's just going to make it worse. I do agree with that. I remember actually saying something about being proved wrong triggers the fight or flight instinct, which is the same thing. So I think I will concede on that point that it won't definitely be beneficial. Wouldn't be definitely beneficial always, but I think it's also a matter of principle to a point. Not even that, but if nobody wants him to be there, or if just like two people want him to be there, I understand that. But colleges are also, a place for learning. I think people should be open to learning from him and have him come there and speak and learn from him. And the people that don't want to learn from him, they can just not go there. And I mean, I still see both sides of the argument if the majority of the colleges not want him to be there. But again, college is a place for learning. Just because you don't have all engineering majors doesn't mean necessarily that just because the majority of college isn't an engineering major. And yes, engineers aren't controversial like Milo, but just because
everyone is ban all engineers.
But just because no one's an engineer, everyone's not an engineering major, doesn't mean we should ban engineers from learning from professors of engineering. And again, it's an example that doesn't really fit the controversy. But honestly, controversy, just because it's controversial doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's bad. And honestly, I would honestly, if you want to, protest him, say, you are this, you are that, I don't think you should be doing this because you are spreading hate and this and this and this. That being said, you shouldn't, because I remember hearing this once, he was trying to give a speech and people went into the hallways of the place he was giving a speech and just screamed so no one could hear him. And don't do that because that's infringing on someone else's free speech. Screaming like a banshee so someone can't hear what the person is saying. However,
what are they up to accomplish there? Like, oh, you can't hear, like, we know what you have to say is bad, so that means no one can ever hear what you have to say, so we're going to scream really loud.
There was actually a speech going on about some sort of men's organization, and they weren't even, and like a bunch of feminists came in, and this is not me taking sides or anything, I'm saying what happened. So a bunch of people, and again, I'm not boxing off feminists into one thing, I was saying a feminist organization, yeah, that's better. And a feminist organization went in there and screamed in the hallway so they couldn't hear what they were talking about and pulled the fire alarm illegally.
Oh, that's dumb. I hate crap like that because it also makes them look bad. Like regardless of if what he's saying is bad or not, is true. Like if it truly is bad or not, or if they have good motive, like it makes them look bad. So it's like,
exactly.
Congratulations, you just made people like think you're, dumb.
Yeah,
or, like, not worth their time.
That's similar to like punching Nazis. Like, I don't personally think you should punch a Nazi because, like, it's illegal. Like, Nazis are not good. Nazis are very bad. But that doesn't mean you should, like, you have a right to punch them in the face because that's still illegal. Like, you just look, you're not going to testify in court saying, oh, well, like, he is this evil Nazi, so that means I have a right to punch him because that's not how the law works.
I disagree with him, therefore I can kill him. It comes under that again, and I mean, look,
kind of how wars go, though.
Somebody disagreed with me, and it's like, I mean, I just don't think that that's justifiable, and I mean, yeah, I think the whole thing, and it falls under, if people say hate speech is not free speech, I hear that chanted a lot, and it's like, well, technically it is. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going to...
I could see a stampede of people chasing you for being like, well, technically it is. Like, no, and then chasing you down.
And it's just like, I don't support hate speech, but I think, and another thing, I think my ideals where hate speech begins and ends is different from all of your ideals where hate speech begins and ends. I would bet money that our ideals do not all align perfectly. But I think that, I'm not going to support somebody yelling out and going, white people are good, black people are bad. That's horrible. That's disgusting.
Watch somebody, like, take that one clip and just, like, clip the rest of it out.
Like, Youth on Subjects of the World is a racist organization.
Youth on Subjects of the World supports black people are bad and white people are good. Horrible, horrible organization. That's another thing I hate, taking people out of context.
You're making it worse.
Kind of like how the media does sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but I had something interesting that I just remembered. So a couple years ago, I saw, like, I was scrolling through Facebook. I was maybe 12 or 13, and I saw a video about, I don't remember exactly, I think it was the public school system and how it the flaws in the public school system. It was a good video, and I agreed with everything that was said in it, and I shared it because, Facebook, I was 13, I saw something I agreed with, and I was like, oh, share. So I shared it, and I didn't look at who posted it because it had showed up in my newsfeed as, like, suggested video, and I believe it was posted by the person that I can't pronounce the name of that we're currently talking about.
Yiannopoulos.
Yeah, him. And the video has like great things to say, and I didn't know who this Milo guy was or whatever. And someone commented on me sharing it, was like, please don't ever share anything from this guy again. He's an evil person. And like they didn't even address anything that he said in the video. It was all only about him. And, like, I don't know if you know who this guy is, but he's this, like, and I deleted the comment, and then I, like, didn't argue with it at all, because I was just kind of like, did you even watch the video? Like, you didn't listen to what he had to say. Like, I didn't, at the time, I still don't really know much about him, but that stuck in my head, because, like, you're completely discounting what this person has to say just because of who they are and what they have to say on other things. And that's not right.
I had a very similar experience. I was talking with somebody, a family member, and what happened is that I was talking with somebody, and I was just saying like, oh, I was hearing this guy talk, and what he said seemed really reasonable about this. And that's the thing. I don't agree with Milo. I don't agree with what I think everything Milo says. I agree with some things that Milo says. And you don't have to agree with a person to agree with some things that they say.
Right.
And I was like, I heard this guy. Yeah, I've been listening to what he's been saying lately. It's pretty cool, Milo Yiannopoulos. And then like, oh my God, this person is evil, horrible. It's like, do you even want to know what they have to say? No. It's like, well, and it just seems very, and that's I think that's the biggest reason why I cannot stand echo chambers. We must talk with people who agree with us, only about things we agree upon. And I think
we must not talk. The opposite of what you were saying is what you meant.
No, he was being, I think he was being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like, we should only talk about people, what we agree on, and only about things we agree upon. And that's so dumb because, I mean, if I'm going to talk to one of you and we're just going to be like, hello, Martin, did you enjoy this? I did enjoy this. Did you enjoy this? Yes, I like this. I like this. We learn nothing. Nothing is learned. We're just sitting there.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't do, like, you don't always have to be learning something. It's good to talk about things with people that agree with you, because then you learn that it's okay to talk about the things you believe, like, things that you believe in without getting, like, shot down. If you're constantly talking with people that disagree with you, you're not going to have much fun, because, like, that's just frustrating. Like, constantly arguing with people is not fun.
Well, I don't know about that. Favorite pastime.
One of the main arguments for like safe spaces, like having that safe space. Now, safe spaces, like that's an interesting conversation, but like that would be an argument for a safe space in a college. Like, oh, it's this place where you can go and feel comfortable and be happy with, the like-minded people.
Yeah.
And you feel, ridicule or objection.
I agree that those places like that, like you should always have like a safe space, but you should not expect everywhere to be a safe space, and you should not only stay in that safe space. Like, go into your echo chamber every once in a while to like hang out, do whatever you do in an echo chamber, like be happy, and then go out and talk to people that disagree with you, learn something, and then go to a different echo chamber for what you think now. Like, you don't have to always be one or the other, and I think everyone on this podcast hopefully strives to have a good balance of both. In human nature, it's extremely hard to like admit when you're wrong. I mean, I think everyone here, I mean, I'm not sure for everyone, but I can say that me and Neil have definitely had a lot of long, drawn-out arguments where neither of us would agree with each other by the end, but at least we understand each other's opinions on it.
Yeah, and I think that actually I think that was so frustrating about that is that I think we were both just talking, and then at the end we realized we actually didn't really have that much we disagreed upon. I think that was like that kind of I think that was the one time I was like, wow, that was just a complete waste of time because we basically agreed on what we were talking about.
Yeah, that can happen too. Like if you say something in a certain tone, you just assume that like, oh, we're arguing. Oh wait, no, we're just wording things differently. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
So yeah,
talk about because that's about free speech.
So like what you're saying, like the problem with bringing, like a great example of it, the problem with bringing a safe space in everywhere you go is you kind of have problems like, again, on college campuses. One thing that is happening is like college courses or like certain courses will be censored or certain students will want censoring of courses or of like history or something within the course because it's offensive or, it triggered them or something. I hate to use that word, but that is what they are saying. And, that's really unfortunate because that is infringing upon other people's education who aren't offended by it. And that is, kind of an infringement on free speech. It's ultimately, in my view, is if you have if this triggers you or it makes you feel a certain way, I don't think it's literally triggering them. It makes you feel a certain way and you don't like how you feel when you hear about whatever it is, like old literature that has something offensive in it. You have to leave the class and you have to personally do something about it. You have to take that responsibility and, fix that problem for yourself. You cannot say this and you cannot teach this course at this expensive college because it offends me. It's not okay.
I think that I think that something that's I think that a great I think what my opinion is that safe spaces aren't inherently bad. I just think that sometimes the culture, not the culture, but some of the behaviors and things that happen because of safe spaces, like just basically saying every place should be a form of safe space is bad. Like, for example, I don't really think I don't really think I need a safe space, but somebody just wants to be in a place where nobody's going to be rude to them. They can just sit down and just do nothing and not be rude to people. If you just want to talk to people, living in an echo chamber just for a little while, great. But when you start moving it out, this is offensive to me. I mean, first of all, you can't go into the real world and then your boss sits down and, says, hey, no, that's offensive to me. This client that we're going to be talking to, offensive. And also when you're learning and you're preventing other people from learning, like Martin was saying, banning different things from colleges or other things like that. I mean, I just think I don't think that's only wrong. I do not only think that's wrong. I think that's actually incredibly horrible to limit learning and limiting literature because certain people find it offensive.
Once again, though, I think that's incredibly horrible too, but I don't think you should necessarily ban something, but you shouldn't expect everyone to listen to what you have to say. Or you shouldn't say something just because you can if you know it's not going to do anything. So if you know that your audience is not here and you want to go there and talk about all the things that they disagree with and they say, no, we don't want you to do that, you shouldn't be that surprised because most people don't want to just get lectured on all the things that they're wrong about or what they think they're wrong about. So it's not that strange. I mean, I don't know all about that situation, just from what I've heard from you guys just now. Makes it seem like it's not that weird that they wouldn't want him to go. It doesn't necessarily make it right, but he shouldn't be surprised or frustrated because if he knows his target audience isn't there, why does he want to go there so bad anyway?
Okay, so you're talking about Milo Yiannopoulos. Yeah. Yeah, there's truth in that. I agree. I was when you first started talking, I thought you were talking about the college courses and the censoring of history or historic literature. I didn't realize you're talking about Milo, but now that I know you're talking about him, I agree.
I think that there's truth and yes, most people, they when they get proved wrong, there's a fight or flight response. They just decide not to listen and go talk to other people. But I think that, have we all changed our opinions on one thing or another? I have.
So many times. I try to keep an open mind as much as possible.
Exactly.
Oh my God. You should have seen me a year ago. I was actually used to I know so much about Milo now because I used to like him. And I used to be pretty right-wing. And then I went through an enlightenment and I learned a lot more about, the oppression that Black people face and, people and everything. I took all that in and my view has now shifted.
Yeah.
I got woke.
Yeah, 3 years ago at this time, I the most people between I feel like most people that I've come in contact to between the ages of 13 and 29 or what, that's just an arbitrary thing, but most of the people that I come in contact to would be considered liberal, and I was super liberal when I was 12, And right now, I would not consider myself of that. Like, I try my best to just, like, I keep my views shifting so that I can always just, like, instead of, like, instead of talking to people who agree with me, I try and talk to people who disagree with me, and, like, more than I talk to people who agree with me, because me personally, I don't really need that, like, safe space as much as some people might, or as much as I did when I'm younger. But, like...
You safe space right now.
What? I think it was my brother screaming something downstairs. Also, Superman is photobombing right now, like, a lot. And he looks super creepy.
Yeah, and I had a similar experience to what you guys are saying. I was actually probably I was pretty left wing in my political views, and then I became super ultra moderate. Seems kind of contradictory there, but I really like being a moderate because it's like you get the benefits of both sides all mushed into one, and it's like, I guess you get the best of both worlds. You get to pick and choose what you like.
Yeah, you sound like you're like selling it. Like you get all of the things you want from both sides, all rolled into one.
Don't be liberal.
And you have both sides hating you.
Republican, Democrat.
Be ultra middle.
Become ultra middle today for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling.
It's
as seen on TV.
I'd say I'm like in the middle too. And here's the thing about being in the middle is you like, at least for me, there's some things that I think that like people on I get left wing and right wing confused, so I'm not going to be super specific. But there's people on both sides, and there's things that I like agree with, and there's things I disagree with all around. And I find myself arguing with everyone ever, most of the time, whenever I'm asked my views. So that can be frustrating. But like, I feel like categorizing things into that is interesting because, like, on the one hand, it gives people community, but on the other hand, it gives people, like, mob mentality. So, like, if I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who think one thing, and then, like, I present something that I think that's different, it can be a lot, I find it can escalate very quickly from being about that to being, like, personal. Like, instead of staying on the topic that they disagree about, like, if, like, a mob mentality and, like, it's just feels like we're just going, like, trading blows about, like, random stuff. And I feel like that's where the point where just because you, like, can say something doesn't necessarily mean you should, because, like, no one's going to benefit from this conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, you have a snake on your head.
I know. It's been like, for like half an hour.
I should just, yeah. And I'm pretty sure Gavin is wearing a hat on the outside of his headphones, so we got great headgear here.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to shower after this. Wash my hair.
Oh, there's somewhere else I want to take this, but I don't know where. Like, I keep thinking about something, but I don't know what it is.
That's kind of how I feel. Also, I don't know how much time we have left.
We have like half an hour, so.
20
I don't know.
minutes.
I don't know. I don't know if have we ever actually had a show that went all the way to 6?
Yeah.
When?
Sometime.
We're actually, I'm gonna go off topic a little bit and just talk about the show in general for like a second. We're like a couple months away from like our 1-year anniversary. It was around this time last year where me and Neil and our producers were like starting to talk about having this show be a thing, and that's pretty cool. Like I remember the Skype calls and conversations. Ironically, we would go on Skype to talk about our Zoom conferences, but I remember all of like those, just the planning for that very clearly, and I think that's really cool that we've almost made it a full year of being a show. I mean, I haven't been on a show since August, and I've come back, and there's like a bunch of people I don't even know, and it's really cool. Like, it's grown past just being a couple of friends, and now it's like this giant rotating cast of children with all different views that don't necessarily all know each other. And I think that's really cool. Like, it feels like a little pet project that's now like something way bigger. Because I'm all like, because I know what the shows are every week, because I'm a producer as well. so I know what's going on, and like I go on one of these, and I think it's going to be like the same people it was, and it's almost never the same people, and I find that like really cool because that means like it's growing in a really awesome way, and there's still so many topics that we still need to talk about, and like it can just go on forever, and I really like that because like it feels very natural and never feels forced, and it's fun to see how much it's grown.
Yeah,
it's
we should
great.
have an 8-hour long broadcast for the 1-year anniversary.
Okay,
I actually, me and the producers have been talking about doing something, but we don't know what it is yet.
All right, so free speech.
Okay. So we're talking about like the first episode of something like
I was talking about how we've almost been a podcast for a year, and like last year at this time, me and you and everyone else were all like going on the calls to talk about. Yep, Marley designed the logo, and I made the theme song on my banjo.
Wait, there's a theme song?
Yeah,
Wait,
you never watched the show? Yeah, I wrote it. My dad plays bass on it, which is an uncredited thing.
The show.
Oh
Look
my
at my
gosh, I
tan
didn't
line.
know we had a theme song. Those are some hot tan lines, Gavin.
Have you watched the show?
Do you ever watch the show?
Not really.
That's great.
I don't want to see myself talking.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel. Like I watch the shows that I'm not on more than I watch the shows that I am on, because I'm like, no, that's what I sound like.
Neil, I'm proud of you. You only knocked over your camera twice from what I can tell this time.
It was
No,
like
it's been like 8 times, I think.
8 times, okay.
Really?
Yeah, it was
I
not.
mean,
It's been it's been a few. It's been a few.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, because we're getting a little off topic. Is
We're
it?
getting quite off topic.
Is
so
there?
ironic.
Is there any? Is there like anything we're still supposed like? Does anyone else have anything else to say, or should we do like our
No,
closing statements?
I feel like there is like something else to say on the matter.
I kind of want to say something else on. Wait, let me think. Actually, yeah, let me think. I'm not really sure if anyone else wants to bring up another topic.
I don't know, I'm thinking like I'm in that zone where it's like there is something, but it's it's like right there, but I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Sick,
I really-
is that Kiss?
Yes.
Yes.
That'll help you remember.
Yeah.
I just
Here.
knocked something over.
Well, he figures that out. I have cat.
Oh my god.
What's the
Everybody
cat?
has cat.
This is Pixel,
Pixel.
and because her fur looks like it's pixelated.
Oh. Well, my cat's name is Kitty, so I'm not gonna.
On my right, I have a Batman poster. And on my left, I have a Kingdom Hearts poster.
On my right, there's a bed. On my left, there's a window. Here's a water bottle. That rock right there. That's a mountain.
I have a little cool piece of trivia here. It's Mario Kart.
Ooh.
That's always cool. And then up here is the thing I had lining my bedroom when I was like 4
Trivia.
years old.
Okay, I have a quick question. Is your bed like 10 feet off the ground? Because your head is almost on the ceiling.
I'm in a bunk bed. Also, I'm
Oh.
really tall. So
Yeah, I was just wondering.
I was wondering if anyone would catch that. So Gavin, think of anything yet, or am I just gonna like talk and give you guys a house tour?
Thinking of something. Like you guys start conversations as well if you think of something.
I know. Okay, let's move into closing statements now. I mean, no pressure.
All right. All right.
So,
Fine.
let's start.
Oh, if anybody wants to donate to my Patreon.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay,
That's a good question. There's one at the bottom. How does
Yeah.
social media
Does
play?
anyone want to donate to my Patreon? No.
Okay, no, we're gonna talk. All right. How does social media play into free speech? Free speech is even more broad on social media. Like it's already like really difficult and impossible to impose, free speech laws in the real world, or at least it should be in a free society. There's like infinite free speech online.
So I think that free speech, I think, is definitely a very big topic right now on the internet, especially with one of the biggest players on the internet, YouTube. If anybody's familiar with what's going on with YouTube right now and the reign of terror of the piss-colored monetization sign saying you've been demonetized. Basically, you have a green little monetization mark, it turns yellow, and basically a lot of videos get demonetized, are getting demonetized on YouTube for offensive. So basically, people who make their livelihood off of talking, sometimes about controversial topics, are getting demonetized, even though they have a humongous audience. Because I need to be frank here, you need a humongous audience to get paid on YouTube. Well, you can monetize your videos. I think once you got like 10,000 total views on your channel. But 1,000 views is like $1, and that's not exact. That's definitely not exact, because you need to get every network, every length ad, the ads they put on there, the ads that do this, basically it's very complicated. But the rough thing is like $1 per 1,000 views. And so you need the point is you need a lot of people to get these views. And if you're getting people that are making their livelihood off of spreading topics, even if they're controversial, you have to understand that must mean there's a huge amount of people watching it. Yeah, I mean, like hundreds of thousands to millions of people watching this. So clearly, they're spreading a message, and people are listening to it. Clearly, and it just seems so unfair what's happening right now, and especially because, I mean, we talked a little bit about earlier with the college and Milo about how, if it's your platform, you should not be able to, you should be able to decide what's on it or not. But I feel like YouTube has just become such a symbol for freedom of speech. It's like YouTube, it's like Twitter.
Exactly.
Facebook. Yeah, but Twitter, it's like Twitter, you can just, Twitter is like little tweets or little quotes. Facebook, you can do other things, but it's like people get banned on Facebook a lot. But YouTube, you can post a 3-hour-long video talking about your take on politics. It's just a haven for free speech. And it's just, I just want it to stay the way that it is.
I don't know if this is really a freedom of speech issue as much as it is a YouTube's business decision issue. Because it's not just people talking about politics that are getting demonetized. It's like the gamers on YouTube are saying curse words or stuff. And
kinds of things.
And it's not necessarily. Go ahead, Gavin.
No, that's pretty much it. It's just that it's not like people's political opinions are being censored because they're not being paid. It's more broad. I think YouTube deserves criticism for how they are deciding to monetize people and how it's an imperfect system. It definitely is. But I wouldn't say that they are censoring people and, stopping the spread of truth by demonetizing, because it's not like they're defunding one side and funding another, or only funding specific. They are. They might, but for the most part, it's just a general problem.
I was just reminded of a YouTube video that I watched on free speech, actually only a couple days ago. So I'm surprised I haven't thought of it on this entire podcast when we were talking about free speech. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the YouTuber. You probably are, Tobuscus and Toby Turner.
Oh, yeah, and he's so old at this point. He was popular.
And and how he would, I don't know, this part you might not know, or you might know, how he was accused of sexual assault, and how after, it was basically said that probably didn't happen, and basically because of that person saying all that stuff on a Tumblr post, I think, his entire career and was shot, and he was basically suicidal for a very long time because of someone's free speech, which was essentially, at least as of right now, considered to be a lie. So I think that's really interesting, how you that person got money for making videos and posts about basically just making things up. At least as of right now. As of right now, currently, the situation is considered that she was lying. But
I don't know either of them, so I don't know that to be true. But if we look at it based on the information we currently know, she essentially lied about something and is like basically essentially ruined someone's life, like to make money and to like get awareness, and basically because she was mad at him for like not. I think the story was she was mad at him for not wanting to like marry her or something. It's some really complicated stuff that I don't really know all the details about. But the part I do know is basically she wanted to hurt him and make money off of it, so she made up this story, and then like he ruined his life. I could be wrong. As far as I know right now, it's considered that she was lying. But I feel like, is there a point where free speech just becomes like slander?
Well,
I want to bring up two things real quick.
Guys, we only have 2 minutes left, so let's like
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Well, it's 5:49. We have 10, 12,
10.
11. Yeah.
11.
So I want to bring up two things really quick. One, I feel YouTube doesn't do a great job about the whole monetization thing, but I get where they're coming from. As a large company, they're trying to make sure that the advertisers are happy with where their content is getting placed. Because if I were to run a company, let's just say that's about, you know, protecting people from sexual abuse, just an example, and then it gets the advertisement gets played on a video about like misogynism, like people beating women or something. And so it's they're trying to, I guess, cater to the advertisers about where because some of them are sensitive about where their advertising is going. And freedom of speech is definitely it's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Like I had this I'm not gonna say who, but I knew somebody who did a science experiment with a friend somewhere, and an off-duty police officer saw them doing it, and he got labeled a terrorist, and it kind of sort of messed with his career, and it is still, I believe, recovering from that. It's looking good, but you know, freedom of speech is you know, it's a blessing and a curse.
So I just want to really quick respond to what we're talking about YouTube. It's that an example is that, and the attention is definitely the attention. I think that what it says on paper is like, oh, look at this. We just want to make sure the advertisers get what they want. But I mean, the thing is that what it's become is that the advertisers, when they get this, they're like, well, we don't want our videos ideally to be displayed on anything offensive. So they actually have like keywords that if you put this in your metadata means description or title. If you put this in your metadata on YouTube, description or title, it'll automatically get like demonetized the vast majority of the time. Like there was this YouTuber that I was watching, and he posted videos about like veganism and stuff, and he said that he actually took vegan out of the title and replaced it with plant-based, and it got remonetized. And he put vegan back on it, and it got demonetized. I mean, and you see how when you're putting these certain keywords in there, and also I was watching this YouTuber who's an atheist, and how atheist is, and he had atheism in his, I don't know if anyone knows the amazing atheist, TJ Kirk. I don't really watch him, but I know I don't really watch him a lot, but I know that he has a YouTube channel, and I don't really like him actually, to be honest. But the thing is that he was called the Amazing Atheist. In a bunch of his videos, he actually got a notification from YouTube saying your channel name is offensive and this and that, and the reason, or his videos are getting demonetized, and the reason was because he changed his YouTube channel from the Amazing Atheist to TJ Kirk. His videos were getting remonetized again. I mean, they're basically, a lot of times they're basically taking these controversial words to appease advertisers and just blacklisting them. And I understand making advertisers happy, but at the same time, it's preventing people from spreading this message to so many people. And also, it's not like YouTube isn't, dying for money. It was fine before then. They're just trying to do this now to make more money and make the advertisers more and more happy. And it really is hurting these people's livelihood when they're trying to spread their message, even if it is, not a popular opinion.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, I think we got like 7 minutes, so I'm not sure if we really have the time to like fully get into this.
And into anything else.
Like,
I want to go into the situation, the Tobuscus argument that you brought up, and about the about how the rape act, about the sexual assault accusation like ruined his career. That is like a huge discussion in itself. Like, we're in an interesting time right now where when it comes to sexual assault accusations by women, where it's not literally, but it's very much like guilty until proven innocent, and it's because of the women are much more empowered now than we were. So we are this weird period where people, when they are accused of sexual assault, they're very likely to be some consequence for it. It really ruins their career, and that's something that happens. Like, not much more to say on it. That's a thing that happens.
yeah, like I read an article about someone who was accused of sexual assault, and then basically they went to jail for like 5 years, and then 5 years later, in like a Tumblr post, she admitted that she was lying, and he was released, and she doesn't have to face any consequences for it, which is weird.
I think the struggle with the situation, I feel like it ultimately is a good thing, because we're getting towards a time where women are more believed than they are disbelieved when it comes to accusations, because for the longest time this kind of stuff was just swept under the rug, and men wouldn't receive any consequences for their actions, for their, like, whether it was just being oddly sexual, and when it wasn't appropriate, or straight up rape, they weren't receiving consequences for it. And now we're just in that weird period where we swung far to the opposite side, and now a bunch of men are feeling the I don't know, it's the caveat to this ultimately good thing. There will be the men who what's the word, like,
What bothers
justly.
Yeah. What bothers me is when you falsely accuse someone of something like that, it now discounts other people who it actually happened to.
Yeah.
And you're ruining someone's life, and all for like your own selfish needs, and that's something I think all of us can agree is morally wrong to do. And I feel like it's happening more and more now. And I feel like that's not good. That's something we need to talk about, but we only have like a minute and a half. So do we have like closing statements?
Closing statement really quick. And then
all blanket statements are wrong. That was supposed to be ironic.
So
who wants to go first?
I had a good time talking about freedom of speech. I'm glad to live in America, and yeah, things are good, but it's a blessing and a curse. Anybody else?
Freedom of speech is incredibly important. There's more nuance to the discussion than some people would say, and it's a fun discussion, but it is incredibly important. It's hard to you can't really draw lines in freedom of speech. It should just be there, and it's critical to a free society.
I think that free speech is just, I think that anybody who argues against free speech, one of the biggest things is, well, then stop arguing. Because that offends me. You could just say that, because, if you're arguing against free speech, stop arguing. Because free speech. Seriously, because you're using free speech to fight against what you're using. And I feel like free speech is awesome, and we should know more than anybody. We're sitting here talking about popular opinions, unpopular opinions, learning information.
This entire podcast is a demonstration of free speech. I think that we're in our last minute though, guys. So
yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. This has been great.
This was awesome. See you next week.
Stay fresh.
Goodbye.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.